the Welcome to Country, followed by the Australian anthem, very much brings our country together. There's that rather contorted line in the Australian anthem, which is with golden soil and wealth and toil, written, of course, by a Scotsman, which is why it's so contorted. But it has the most beautiful translation in the Gadigal language, which is Yarabal Bamal Yaraguni. And that means, yet, O earth, don't tire yourself. And I think it's one of the most beautiful statements of the anthem in the Gadigal language, because it's telling us that our land is precious and we must look after it. And you, of course, here in Fire and Rescue New South Wales, are in your way the custodians of this beautiful land of ours, that we don't want it to tire because we want it to be everlasting. When asked to speak today, it's always considered that I need to be serious and to give you a history lesson. I'm actually going to do that. I do know that when the person known to me as Minister Dib, and to everybody else as Jihad, gets up here, he's going to speak from the heart. I can assure you, when I run through this history, and as I learned of this history over the last week, my heart also went out to you, the firefighters of New South Wales, because your history is really quite extraordinary. I had an initial problem, I have to tell you, celebrating 140 years. What does that mean? Is it a centenary plus 40, or is it a sesquicentenary minus 10? But anyway, we know it's 140 either way. I also know that when we have the centenarians' luncheon at Government House, there's one thing that you don't stand between, and it's those who celebrate it and their cake. But I do wish to take some moments just to reflect on your history. It is contained in some respect in your booklet, but I hope I'm able to pull out some things, and being a lawyer, and history and legal history is a great love of mine, to me it was quite extraordinary. And there's a long governor relationship with you and Government House, because it was Lord Loftus, who was the 15th Governor of New South Wales, who gave royal assent to the legislation that allowed, in effect, your establishment of what was then called the Metropolitan Fire Brigade. In that year, the Act was presented to the New South Wales Parliament, and it was to make better provision for the protection of life and property from fire. And there's always a catch in legislation. It says then for other purposes, but we'll leave that to the legal interpretation experts. That, of course, was 1884. Queen Victoria was on the throne, and the streets surrounding this area were filled with horses and carts. And, of course, this building wasn't even here. At that time, 1884, Sydney's fire protection was managed by a combination of all these little brigades, organised and paid for on the one hand by insurance companies. Now, can you believe that? That's part of your history, the insurance companies of Australia. But there were an increasing number of volunteer brigades. They'd sprung up in part because, guess what, the insurance companies refused to insure the high-risk buildings, such as theatres, printing presses and breweries, resulting in fire crews which were named the Victoria Theatre Brigade and the Standard Brewery Volunteer Company. However, it would actually be a little unfair to the insurance companies to suggest that they were unwilling to attend fires of non-insured buildings, because a regulation was made, you see. That was under the 1837 Building Act. And what it provided for, it provided actually just this little incentive, because the first brigade, not to put out the fire, but the first brigade to put water on the fire, received compensation from the government of 30 shillings. The second and third brigade that got there got 20 and 10 shillings respectively, and whoever put out the fire got nothing. It wasn't really part of the deal. They just wanted someone to be there. But unbelievably important, whilst that work in the early days was As a city grows, you need professional organisations. And that's why the 1884 came in. And that really facilitated the beginning of this wonderful organisation. A fire brigades board was established, appointed officers that fixed their salaries, stations were planned and permanently staffed with paid employees, and the governor got into the deal again and appointed a superintendent of fire brigades whose responsibilities were to keep the names, ages and occupations and addresses of the members so they could be called up quickly, to summons the firefighters for practice at least once a week, and to ensure that the equipment was kept in good order. Now, your equipment at that stage included only steam fire engines. And there were three in particular: the Guardian, the Nonpareil and the Fire King, with these capacities respectively: 250 gallons, 450 gallons and 600 gallons. So try putting out a fire with that amount of water power these days. A year later, the superintendent also had the honour of becoming the inspector of kerosene. There's probably some people here in the audience young enough who don't even know what kerosene is. I don't know how frequently you can buy it, except at Bunnings. But I remember the kerosene heaters, and I remember how scary it was to light them, and all those instructions to keep it away from curtains and the like, because it was the source of many a fire. It's really the ancient history version, I guess, these days of the batteries for the e-scooters, which we continually hear about. One of the first acts of the board was, that was established under the Act, was to purchase land for this City of Sydney station. And they did that in July of 1884 at a cost of £10,000. Seems cheap now, but in those days was a significant investment. Building delays, which were around even then, meant that the building wasn't actually completed until 4 years later, but this station has retained the title of Station Number 1, despite the fact that the station out at Marrickville opened 2 years earlier. When the board produced their 26th annual report for the year 1909, before being superseded by the Board of Fire Commissioners, they looked back with satisfaction on the work that they had done since 1884, and they expressed it in these terms: with pardonable pride upon the great progress made with a corps that, although in numbers of men, only as it turned out, and appliances may be exceeded elsewhere, has no superior in any other aspect. And one could say that remains the history of this wonderful, wonderful fire and emergency service. Today, of course, it's one of the largest fire and rescue services. It has over 500 fire appliances, close to 7,000 full-time and on-call firefighters, continuing pride in the progress which is warranted, along with the recognition of a corps which claims excellence as its badge of honour, and rightfully so. Now let's get back to this birthday party. The centenarians, when we have them at Government House, always remind me of what we take for granted and what we wrongly assume has always been. It's always an interesting question to ask them what it's all about. Would you believe one said toilets? Tells you something. We know hearing aids were another thing. And of course, of the things that hadn't changed, Minister Dib, you can answer this one, of course, politics. But this is so important. This history is wonderful to celebrate, and it is an honour for Dennis and I to be here. We need strong and effective institutions. Strong and effective institutions only exist because of the work that's been put in, the commitment of the many individuals, as well as the vision and the courageous decision-making over the years and years of dedicated service. So today, as a community, we are so fortunate to literally stand on the shoulders of giants. That is you, the members of Fire and Rescue New South Wales. We, the community, are the beneficiaries of the extraordinary contribution everyone in the fire and service history has made to us. And so today, we stand here and we honour every single person who has served in Fire and Rescue New South Wales. We celebrate you as an organisation, professional, highly skilled, and with that heritage, we wish you so much, so well for the future. Happy birthday, and thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I'll try and crack a few jokes, but my past experience tells me that they fall pretty flat. And I don't think it's because of my jokes. I actually think it's because the crowd hasn't quite worked out my sense of humour, as you just haven't as well. Of course, I too want to begin by acknowledging Ron Gadigal-Land and thank Uncle Alan. I want to acknowledge an incredible supporter of Fire and Rescue, Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, and Dennis as well. I know the support you provide. The last time, Your Excellency, we met in emergency services was for the special commencement ceremony for the Commissioner. And at that time, I think we had over 100 new graduates as well. And they're pretty special events to go to. And I think your support is really clear, really evident and much appreciated. Of course, acknowledging Commissioner Fewtrell, Commissioner as well, Carleen York and Commissioner Brenton Charlton, and as well as so many Deputy Commissioners who are Secretary of Department of Communities and Justice. I think when Her Excellency said that I'll speak from the heart, I think that was a challenge not to pull out my speech, so I won't pull out my speech. But I will say one thing, it's by a fluke, and maybe not so much, but if you're a bit of a hopeless romantic, as many of us may be, then today is also a day to show your love. And I mean, what better way for the state to show their love for Fire and Rescue than by having Valentine's Day specifically on his 140th birthday. So we love yous all, as Jeff Fennick has once said. Things have changed over the years. In 140 years, the whole firefighting service has changed. What began, as Her Excellency talked about, as a thing organised by the insurance companies, has transformed into one of the world's leading combat agencies when it comes to fire and rescue. And it's something that I'm privileged to be the last in a line of. And on one part, in a cog, in the same way that current members stand on the shoulders of previous members and future members will stand on their shoulders. We all play a part in a story. And the story of Fire and Rescue is extraordinary. Because I've seen over the past year the great privilege of being the Minister, not because I get to be the Minister, but because I get to meet you. And I get to know you. And I get to visit you. And I get inspired by you. Because whilst everything may have changed over that 140 years and we've gone from steam trucks to trucks that I think could probably still be in service potentially, Jeremy, right through to today's modern trucks. And the different challenges, whether it was wood fires or kerosene fires or now the lithium ion fires, or as we see the changes in technology, there's been the one constant, and that one constant is the bravery. That one constant is the service. That one constant is in doing the very best that you can. And when you're an emergency services minister, you often get people coming up to you and say, I love, and they'll pick out the emergency service. And it's because you've earned the love and the trust and the respect of everyone in the community. Because you go above and beyond. And when some of us are a bit weary of the danger, or wary of the danger, and weary, you're not. You inspire one another to go that little step further. And it's about saving someone's life. It's about putting out a fire. It's about helping somebody who's in need. It's about doing so much more than putting out fires. There's not a single person in this room who would say that that's all Fire and Rescue do. The community engagement work and the education piece is something that's close to my heart. As somebody who has members in their family and who still don't speak English all that well and represents a community that often comes from low socioeconomic backgrounds, Fire and Rescue reaching out to them is the difference between a fire that's quickly put out or a fire that consumes somebody and tragically takes their life. The education pieces around diverse communities, Indigenous communities, disadvantaged communities, is, I think, something that's really special. And it's something that once again reminds us that you are part of the community, a critical part of the community that helps a community function. Only last week we had a partnership with Nickelodeon and the Paw Patrol, and I was super cool with my nieces and nephews for about 5 minutes, except when I didn't get them any toys. But that point is again that education piece, the community prevention element. If we can share stories and we can help young people identify the dangers of fire, identify what could go wrong and identify what we can do, then we actually get to that situation that every single firefighter wants to be in. And that's actually not to fight the fire, because the fire wouldn't occur. I could speak for hours, and I know that the cake is about to melt soon, so I won't, but I could speak for hours about the inspiration that you are. And everyone carries that. Former commissioners, current commissioners, future commissioners, current firefighters, former firefighters, their families. And let's not forget their families. And it would be remiss of me not to thank families who provide that incredible support and who sometimes have to receive that dreadful news that they've lost somebody. And I think it's important that we remember that whilst we might think this is an incredibly glamorous thing to do, there's so much danger in this. And every single day, every one of our firefighters who turns up to work does so knowing that they are putting their life at risk, does so knowing that they're trying to protect the community. And that's a risk that they're willing to take because they believe in the value of service, they believe in the role that they play, and they believe in what protecting community is all about. It is an enormous honour, it's an enormous privilege, and it's something that I will always treasure. And when I say thank you on behalf of the government, I don't speak just on the current government, I speak on behalf of all previous governments and future governments. Thank you for what you do. Today's celebration is not about cutting the cake, it's about an acknowledgement for the work that you do. And here's hoping for 140 more years of great success. Thank you for protecting our communities. Thank you for putting yourselves at risk. And thank you for every single thing that you do. Happy birthday. Happy Valentine's Day. We love you all.
I'd too like to thank Uncle Alan for his very generous welcome to country, and also acknowledge that we're on Gadigal land, but also point out that the first firefighters in Australia were, of course, our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. It's also pleasing to see that tradition continuing today with our number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander firefighters who are able to continue that proud tradition, but also being proud of their culture and the work that they do. It's wonderful to have Your Excellency here today, and Mr Wilson, thank you both for coming along. To the British Deputy Consul General Jonathan Cook, it's lovely to have you here, and thank you. It's also appropriate, given that our first Chief Officer, or Superintendent as it was then, came from the London Fire Brigade to take up the reins of the new Metropolitan Fire Brigade in Sydney. So that's a connection that has gone right back to the very start of our organisation. Minister Dib, thank you for your ongoing support to the organisation, and to our Secretary, Mr Michael Tidball. It's wonderful to have the City of Sydney Deputy Mayor, Robert Koch, here with us, and thank you for your attendance and support. Our two organisations share a very long history with the development of this wonderful city. I also thank our Fire and Rescue Executive Leadership team, and it's wonderful to have you all here with us today to join in the celebrations, the acknowledgements of today's milestone. To the Fire Brigade Employees Union President and Secretary, thank you for coming along, and also to our sister agencies that are here with us today. Thank you for being here with us. We don't work in isolation, and every day on the road our firefighters are out there with your people working together to keep the community safe. So it's wonderful to have you here to share in the celebrations. There's a couple of other special attendees that I'd just like to acknowledge or point out. Our longest serving firefighter who's still in service today is retained firefighter Peter Ryan from Oberon, and he's got 59 years of service. So congratulations to Peter, and it's good that you could be part of it today. We'd also wanted to have our youngest serving firefighter. Unfortunately, retained firefighter Cooper Mason from Turvey Park in Wagga couldn't be with us today, but acknowledge the fact that he's just a young 18-year-old firefighter starting off in his career, and will be able to fill in some of the stories of the future for many years to come. It's wonderful to have a range of crews from across metropolitan Sydney representing all the different area and zone commands. We're also joined today by Dr. Colin Adrian, who was the author of the official history on the centenary of New South Wales Fire Brigades. It was a book called Fighting Fire, Centenary of Service, and it marked the history of the organisation from 1884 to 1984. So Colin will be able to fill you in on a few extra chapters over the last 40 years of activity. Also David Tye, one of our station officers, who wrote the book Leading from the Front, chronicling the history of the 21 chief officers and commissioners from 1884 to 2015. As the Minister mentioned, it's important we also acknowledge our family members who have supported all of our people through their service, and so for both the current and serving firefighters and their families who are, current and former firefighters who are with us and their families today, a big welcome, and it's good to have you here as part of the celebration. It is a real honour for me to stand here and acknowledge 140 years of service on behalf of our organisation. Every day we deal with emergency incidents, and it's easy therefore for us to get caught up in the urgency of the sector that we work in, either responding to the current emergency or preparing for the next one. And so today is a really important opportunity for us, albeit briefly, to pause and reflect and acknowledge what a special thing all of our combined efforts over all those years have provided. We're not merely marking the passage of time, we're celebrating the legacy of dedication and service, which has shaped who we are today and what we are also looking forward to in the future. Now, the passing of the Fire Brigades Act in 1884 was pivotal for our establishment, and it became a defining moment with the foundation of what would become the Metropolitan Fire Brigade, then the New South Wales Fire Brigades, and now Fire and Rescue New South Wales. The legislation not only formalised the establishment of the fire brigades across Sydney, but heralded a new age of professionalism and coordination and accountability in fire services, bringing together that disparate mix of volunteer and insurance company brigades. However, we could have very easily been celebrating our 170th birthday today, and I guess in a nod to the patience that politicians have to show at times, it was almost 30 years of different attempts to get a Fire Brigades Act passed before it was finally passed in 1884. And that came on the back of all those previous attempts, but also a key catalyst was the fire that destroyed the Garden Palace in the Botanic Gardens in 1882. Following that and new attempt to get the Act through, there was then sufficient support in Parliament for the Act to be passed. So it's a daunting task to try and condense 140 years of service and stories, the history, the characters that we've had work for us as firefighters and in other roles in the organisation, and the incredible acts of selflessness, dedication and bravery that have been demonstrated. A few things in all of that stand out though, and that's the incredible passion and dedication that our people show for their work and the significance and impact of the work that they do that has had on the people of New South Wales. There's a famous painting by Arthur Streeton, which he did in 1894, called Fireman's Funeral. And it captures the outpouring of appreciation and support upon the loss of firefighter Charles Brown at a fire in George Street, and the 10,000 or so people that gathered to mark his passing around the town hall. I think that gives you an indication how very quickly Fire and Rescue, or the Metropolitan Fire Brigade at that time, endeared itself to its community that we serve. The bravery of our firefighters in the most extreme and perilous of conditions is also an important thing for us to highlight. Our Medal of Conspicuous Bravery was created in 1932 to recognise the most exceptional of acts of courage following an explosion and fire at a hardware store and general store in Armidale. Now, while firefighters perform courageous acts every day, it is just a select group who have received this highest honour. As an organisation, we've continued to grow and develop, introducing new technologies, learning new techniques and procedures to meet the changing risk profile. As we heard, the change from horsepower to petrol-powered vehicles, the introduction of gas and electricity in properties, and now the significant underground infrastructure that we have, along with the introduction of new lithium-ion batteries. So the work we do today as firefighters is so much more than what it was in 1884. And we do this with a highly capable and skilled workforce. This workforce was enriched following the decision in 1985 to allow women to become firefighters. Of course, we'd previously had women firefighters during World War II, but now, rather than being a temporary measure, women are a key and enduring part of our organisation. Our progress over the last 140 years has been nothing short of remarkable. From the days of the horse-drawn engines and hand-operated pumps to the cutting-edge and state-of-the-art technology, both in firefighting trucks and all the supporting IT infrastructure and other equipment. Our ability to adapt, innovate and overcome has been central to our success. We're also in a very unique position amongst fire services around the world. We provide fire and rescue services in a very complex urban environment in a world city such as Sydney. We have all the range of industrial risks that we deal with, agricultural and grain storage type facilities as well in the agricultural sector. We provide over-snow capabilities to protect the communities of our alpine villages. And then we also have crews working on the edge of the desert in places like Burke, Cobar and Broken Hill. And in all of these locations, we deliver all of our capabilities every day. Looking back, our history is deeply entwined with the events and major milestones of Sydney as a city and New South Wales as a state and further beyond. Historic fires in major churches and buildings and theatres around the early Sydney left its mark and led to the creation of the Metropolitan Fire Brigade. More recent events like the Granville train disaster, the St Peters gas explosion, the Thredbo landslide, major flooding in the northern rivers, the Black Summer bushfires, supporting the work through the COVID pandemic, or tragically the Greta bus crash from last year, are all incidents that have left their mark on the people of New South Wales, but also the people of Fire and Rescue New South Wales. Our commitment to service extends beyond the borders of New South Wales. Our deployments to international events, such as the earthquakes in Christchurch, Japan and Turkey, along with numerous deployments to wildfires in North America, speak to our sense of service and supporting humanity in times of crisis. More than ever though, our proactive efforts in prevention, fire safety engineering, community education have saved countless lives and continue our efforts in the response to emerging risks, working together to make sure that the people of New South Wales are safe now and in the years to come. Amidst the progress and change, one constant has been our people throughout our history. Their courage, sacrifice and unwavering dedication has been critical to our success. From our frontline firefighters to those support staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes, everyone plays a vital role in our collective achievements. So today it's a real honour for me to be able to announce that we will be launching a new award recognising our people. I'm pleased to say the Commissioner's Awards for Excellence will recognise the outstanding achievements and contributions by all members of Fire and Rescue New South Wales. The Commissioner's Awards for Excellence will honour individuals and teams who go above and beyond with their everyday responsibilities, putting service to the community and or fire and rescue as their highest priority. The Commissioner's Awards for Excellence will be open to all staff and awarded in 4 categories of individual administrative staff members, individual trade staff members, individual firefighters and teams. I'm also pleased to be able to say that we'll be announcing or establishing some employer recognition awards to acknowledge the support that our on-call and retained staff receive from their primary employers. Nominations will open soon and the awards will be presented at St Florian's Day on the 4th of May. While recognising the contributions of our people thus far, it would be remiss of me not to also acknowledge the valuable contribution of our predecessors. Whether it was the former 22 chief officers or commissioners, or the many thousands of other people who have worked in the organisation, we've all benefited from their contributions and the foundations that they built for us. Their leadership, vision and dedication has shaped the organisation into what it is today, and their legacy and those of our colleagues will continue to inspire and guide us for the years to come. It's also a wonderful opportunity for us to reaffirm our commitment to the communities we serve and recognise the crucial role we play in safeguarding their lives, their property and building their resilience. I'd like to recognise the important partnerships that we have across government and industry and the community, many of who are here today, and acknowledge how these relationships have continued to evolve and develop as we support the community. We look forward to working together for future success and addressing new challenges and opportunities to continue to improve the safety of our community. In closing, let us remember that the true measure of our organisation's success lies not in the accolades we receive or the milestones that we're granted, but in the lives that we've touched and the communities that we've protected. As we embark on the next chapter of Fire and Rescue New South Wales, let us carry forward with the values of respect, integrity, service and courage that have marked our previous 140 years. May we continue to inspire, innovate and lead by example for generations to come. Thank you.